US military drones are on the hunt. In early September, they found their prey, a 12-meter wooden boat drifting through the Caribbean. Around these waters, such boats are everywhere. Fishermen use them, and so do smugglers. Normally, US forces would intercept, board, and search the vessel, but not this time. The drone simply destroyed it. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern repeated, one boat after another blown out of the water. Donald Trump later announced that the people on board were cartel operatives and that the strikes were part of a new offensive to choke off the drug trade before it reached US shores.
Every terrorist thug smuggling poisonous drugs into the United States of America, please be warned that we will blow you out of existence. We have no choice.
By the end of the month, the US had carried out at least 14 strikes against alleged drug vessels. But there was a problem. The strikes were happening in the wrong place. Most cocaine production is centered in Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Mexico. And those shipments usually move overland or across the Pacific, not through the Caribbean. Then, in October, the true objective emerged. Trump had shifted toward the Caribbean theater and, implicitly, at Venezuela. The US sent its most advanced aircraft carrier, greenlit CIA activity inside Venezuela's borders, and signaled that strikes on land could follow. The drones hunting smugglers have now found a bigger catch. Their next target may fly the Venezuelan flag. Today's video is sponsored by Vanguard Mining, traded under the ticker UUUFF on Schwab, Fidelity, Interactive Brokers, and E-Trade. Governments are tightening their grip on critical minerals. Uranium is treated as a national security resource. Lithium is emerging from a deep correction, with analysts warning of another supply crunch, while copper remains the backbone of the energy transition. Vanguard has repositioned itself around this shift. In recent weeks, it moved from a single gold asset to a portfolio that now includes lithium, uranium, gold, and copper. The company regained full ownership of the Positos 1 lithium project in Salta, inside Argentina's lithium triangle. In 2022, this same project was the core asset in a valuation of about $75 million. Today, the entire company trades near $10 million, even though it now holds that lithium asset again. At the same time, Argentina is pushing to expand the output of critical minerals, and Paraguay is opening its uranium sector to foreign investment. With tight supply across both lithium and uranium, Vanguard is in prime position to be part of the solution. Check out their ticker on the screen and learn more by clicking the link in the description. Just make sure to do your own due diligence. Venezuela sits on the world's largest oil reserves, a fortune that's invited more trouble than prosperity. For decades, its leadership has traded oil for protection, first with Moscow, then with Beijing. Russian bombers have landed on its runways, while Chinese loans have built its infrastructure. But the walls are closing in. Sanctions have gutted the economy, allies are keeping their distance, and Trump's pressure campaign has left Maduro boxed in. Caracas has tried to play ball. Maduro even offered US firms a majority stake in Venezuela's oil industry, a desperate concession that Washington flatly rejected. That's because this isn't just about oil or cocaine, it's about power. You see, the Trump administration has accepted the reality of a multipolar world, but wants the Western Hemisphere sealed off from it. Under the Monroe Doctrine, South America is supposed to remain America's domain, not a playground for Russian arms or Chinese capital. And so, Trump wants to make an example out of Venezuela, a demonstration of what happens when a government in America's backyard flirts too closely with Moscow or Beijing. By mid-October, diplomatic backchannels collapsed, and things have been cooking since. The US quietly reshuffled its military command. The head of Southcom stepped down 2 years earlier than scheduled, which is a sign that Washington wants new leadership willing to push for regime change. Soon after came the muscle. Over 10,000 Marines and sailors deployed across the Caribbean, along with a surge of naval and air assets, all under the banner of anti-cartel operations. But something else was happening beneath the surface. Trump authorized covert activity inside Venezuela. Immediately after, Caracas claimed to have captured CIA-backed agents conspiring a false flag. Allegedly, a mercenary group was plotting an attack on one of the US warships and then pinned the blame on Maduro. Doing so would have given Trump the pretext to launch a full-scale assault on Venezuelan targets and topple the government. Or at least, that's how Caracas tells it. The second covert operation unfolded a week later. The FBI allegedly tried to bribe Maduro's personal pilot to reroute his plane mid-flight to a place where US authorities could apprehend the Venezuelan president. In exchange, the pilot would collect the $50 million bounty on Maduro's head. It sounds like something out of a Cold War spy thriller, and it's the kind of stunt that once helped Washington snatch cartel kingpins in Mexico. This time, however, it failed. The pilot refused and the plan came crashing down. But failure has a way of changing tactics. If Phase 1 is fought in the shadows, Phase 2 may soon unfold in daylight. The US has massed the biggest naval force in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Roughly a tenth of its navy now lurks off Venezuela's coast, including the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, which can field more than 75 warplanes. At the same time, Washington is dusting off Cold War infrastructure. Former naval and air bases are being rebuilt, and civilian airports in Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands are being upgraded. Both territories sit roughly 800 kilometers from Venezuela and could serve as springboards for operations on the mainland. Satellite imagery shows Reaper drones parked on the tarmac in Puerto Rico, while new shelters are lined up along the runways to increase housing capacity. Open source intel also points to refurbished taxiways at the former Roosevelt Roads military base. These upgrades would allow US aircraft to stage, refuel, and sustain continuous sorties. Admittedly, some of these assets could be employed in anti-cartel operations, as US officials argue. But F-35s and B-52s have been spotted on the ground in Puerto Rico, and that sort of firepower isn't for chasing cartel boats. That's regime change material. Venezuela stands little chance against the arsenal parked off its shores. On paper, its military looks big, but it's mostly theatrics. Years of corruption have turned it into a political prop rather than a fighting force. It has Russian-made Su-30s and a few aging F-16s, but most of these aircraft are grounded, stripped for parts, or barely airworthy. Maintenance is also poor, supply lines are thin, and the air force that looks impressive in parades would crumble in a real fight. Moscow has made gestures of support. Its cargo planes have touched down in Caracas, advisors have appeared on the ground, and there are quiet reports of Wagner fighters moving in. For the Kremlin, Venezuela is leverage, a way to needle the White House for backing Ukraine. But Russia's resources are stretched thinly, and whatever it sends won't be enough to change the outcome. The US carrier strike group parked outside could wipe out Venezuela's defenses in a matter of days, if not hours. But Washington doesn't need, and probably won't, rush to occupy Caracas. The play is likely slower and quieter. Hit airstrips, torch smuggling routes, and let pressure build. When needed, special forces slip in and drones handle the rest. Every strike would bleed the Maduro government methodically without ever calling it war. Of course, this is speculative, and besides, the real question isn't how the conflict would start, it's what comes after. Toppling Maduro may be the easy part. Filling the vacuum is harder, and that vacuum is armed to the teeth. Chavez spent years flooding the streets with AK-47s, first importing them, then building a factory to make more. No one knows the real number, but estimated figures suggest up to 500,000 rifles in the hands of gangs and militias loyal to the government. So yes, America could bomb and forget and make quick work of Venezuela. But what comes next wouldn't be as straightforward. If the Maduro government were to collapse, the guns won't disappear, they'll just change hands. Factions, gangs, and warlords would tear into each other to claim what's left. It would be a bloodbath, the kind that comes from unintended consequences. After all, power doesn't make one wise, just louder when wrong. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you approve of what we do, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and mayhaps share the video. In any case, thank you for your time, and Sawal.